This is your Dune read-along book.
If that had been Eamon Andrews' opening gambit, I would have been much more invested.
Every time you hear this chime, it means it's time to turn the page in your storybook.
I don't have a storybook. Is that a deal breaker?
Now, if you are ready, we will start Dune Part 1. Battle for the Known Universe. Don't forget to turn the page every time you hear the chime.
No, you don't have to play it again. Ow.
In the far reaches of the known universe lies the planet Dune. Its surface is one vast desert.
But if you say it sounds exactly like Tatooine, Lucasfilm will sue your arse off.
Only on Dune is a spice produced that is so important, powerful rulers fight over who shall control it.
Cumin. It's also really funny if you mispronounce it.
That spice, called melange, gives people the power to see into the future.
And yet, Brexit.
And to control travel through space and time. Far across the galaxy from Dune lies the planet Caladan.
Did Toto do the music for this too?
For many years, its ruling family, the Atreides, had been at war with the evil Harkonnen family from the planet Giedi Prime. Inside the training room of the Castle Caladan,
Paul's ears were still ringing from that unnecessarily loud bell.
Young Paul Atreides, son of Duke Leto Atreides, prepared for combat. Today, he was to practice once again with a new secret weapon.
Once again, if you've read A Feast Unknown by Philip Jose Farmer, not that.
With him were three of his father's closest advisors, Dr. Yue, Gurney Halleck, and Thufir Hawat. Thufir asked the boy,
"Are you ready to continue your training?"
"I am ready,"
Paul answered.
But he wasn't, and a terrible incident occurred as a result. Lessons were learned, new safety measures were put in place, and you can listen to Paul's state funeral on the other side of this record.
Gurney Halleck, the weapons expert, ordered the guards to stop the fighter robot. Then he turned to Paul.
"Tomorrow we go to Dune. You must be prepared. Dune is dangerous, and so are our enemies, the Harkonnen."
Dr. Yue placed a special collar around Paul's neck.
"Who's your daddy?" he asked. Paul was confused, as he knew full well that his daddy was Duke Leto Atreides, played in this version by Jurgen Prochnow.
At the front was a box, the new secret weapon, a weirding module. Hanging from the ceiling before him was a fighter robot. It started spinning, its sharp knives and spines whirring with deadly menace.
It was whirring so loudly it became almost impossible to hear me, the narrator.
Paul circled the robot with caution, leaping back as it tried to cut him to pieces. Then, suddenly, Paul charged it, shouting. The weirding module on his neck amplified his yell into a terrible roar that caused parts of the robot to burst into flames.
Has he tried it on Mark Zuckerberg?
"Perfect."
Gurney whispered to Dr. Yue. The physician nodded.
Paul is special. The best student we have ever taught.
Also the only student.
He will need every skill he has learned when he gets to Dune.
Thufir added. Life in the galaxy had evolved in many strange ways.
Just look at Steve Buscemi.
One of the strangest was the third stage navigator, a gigantic, flesh-toned grasshopper-like creature who floated in a glass tank filled with orange spice gas.
Add a few carrots, chopped onions and parsnips, cook over a low heat for 4 hours. That's some good eating.
The navigator had evolved from a human being over thousands of years. He was smarter than most humans, but he was also very dangerous because he could read men's thoughts.
Lucky old women, eh?
The navigator had come to a secret meeting with Emperor Shaddam IV, the cruel ruler of the known universe.
The kind ruler of the known universe forgot to RSVP.
Speaking through a translator machine that changed his thoughts into words, the navigator told Shaddam,
Nicole Kidman is at maximum hotness in the movie Invasion. It's too bad so few people have seen it. Oh, don't get me wrong, I still absolutely would any day of the week if she knocked on the hull of my spacecraft, but... Maybe this machine shouldn't turn all my thoughts into words.
I know of your scheme to defeat the Atreides. You have ordered Duke Leto Atreides and his family to Dune to take over the spice mining. The Harkonnen will pretend to give up and leave.
The Jay Leno approach.
But then return and destroy the Atreides. It is a clever scheme. But if you want our support,
I'll have to put it through the wash first. Been working out a lot lately.
you must kill the Duke's son, Paul.
Meanwhile, on Caladan, Paul was waking from a tortured sleep, filled with dreams of Dune.
It was the mini-series that aired on the Sci-Fi Channel about 25 years ago, which, despite its budgetary limitations, was not without points of interest.
Two women were standing in his doorway. His mother, the elegant Lady Jessica,
And President of the British Board of Film Certification, Natasha Kaplinsky.
and an old woman with metal teeth and a shaved head, covered by a long black headdress. The old woman whispered to his mother,
You were ordered to give birth to a daughter to be our future leader, but you disobeyed and had a son. Our ancient religious order of Bene Gesserit women have used the spice melange to look into the future and alter history.
Alter history or alter the future? It can't be both, Criswell.
You should not have changed that.
As Paul sat up, his mother explained,
Paul, this is the Reverend Mother Mohayim.
You are my mother's Bene Gesserit teacher?
Paul asked the woman.
No, I'm her personal shopper, she explained. I'm just off to Ann Taylor.
The Reverend Mother nodded, then ordered.
Come here.
She used the voice, a Bene Gesserit power that forced the listener to follow her commands.
Put your hand inside this box.
Well, this record certainly took a turn, didn't it? Get the kids out of the room.
What's in it?
Pain.
It's a videotape of Saturn III starring Kirk Douglas, Farrah Fawcett and a badly dubbed Harvey Keitel.
Paul pulled back his hand.
Put your hand inside.
Paul obeyed, grimacing as the pain grew worse. But he did not pull his hand away,
Enough.
said the Reverend Mother.
Be thankful I didn't have the Gom Jabbar at your neck in this version for some reason.
Paul removed his hand and stared at it in amazement.
Why, there's not even a mark on it.
And not a hair on my palm. I can start fapping again immediately.
You have passed the test of courage. Perhaps you will be the first Messiah foretold by our Bene Gesserit prophecies.
Light years from Caladan was the planet Getty Prime. Most of the surface of that dark and deadly place was covered with a sea of oil.
Because in science fiction, planets are always only one thing.
The Harkonnen cities floated on that black ooze in huge steel boxes, hundreds of stories tall. Inside his green-tiled chambers, the evil Baron Harkonnen floated freely in the air.
Thanks to lessons he received from Mary Poppins' Uncle Albert.
He was so fat,
How fat was he?
he wore special anti-gravity suspensors that kept his swollen body afloat, so he no longer had to walk anywhere.
Every man over 50 agrees he's living the dream.
The Baron was overjoyed as he boasted of his plans to destroy the Atreides on Dune.
I have forced one of the Duke's most trusted advisors to betray him. My plan cannot fail.
Sir, it's Monty Burns on the phone. He thinks you should tone it down a bit.
At that moment, Paul looked out the window of his family's spaceship as it lifted off the surface of Caladan.
Oh, bloody hell, I forgot my toothbrush. I suppose it's too late to go back.
With it were over 4,000 Atreides spaceships, all headed toward the Guild Highliner, a cargo ship so huge that all the Atreides ships would only be part of its cargo.
The rest were crates of duty-free Benson and Hedges.
I will miss Caladan.
Paul thought sadly.
I fear that dangerous times are ahead.
Once the Highliner was loaded, the third stage navigator took control.
I'm gonna sink this bitch. Sorry, space bitch.
He entered a huge map of the galaxy and, with the strange power of the spice melange, he folded space.
So the navigators can do origami on a galactic scale?
He changed the position of the planets so that Dune was now below them and Caladan was light years away.
I mean, it was a really good toothbrush, Paul thought regretfully.
Paul felt his heart beat faster as the Atreides ships left the Highliner and headed down toward the sandy surface of Dune.
That's sandy in the sense of being covered in sand, not covered in multiples of the character played by Olivia Newton-John in the movie Grease. Though in an infinite universe all things are possible, so there must be a planet like that somewhere, and I'm hopelessly devoted to finding it. And that's the bell that tells us we're coming to the end of this portion of the story of Dune. Thanks for joining me. If you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. And if you'd like access to over 100 more riffs, including classic Doctor Who, Jason of Star Command and the 1944 Captain America serial, subscribe on Patreon.